stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you can call the roll, please.
Director Daddy,
Present.
Director Whitman,
Here.
Director Filkey.
Here.
I had an order. One wasn't there. And Chair Hages.
Here, Jim Finch may be here late. He called me he's in another meeting right now.
Okay. That's what stopped me.
All right, director announcements. Peter.
Good job. Nothing except Senior Canyon is engaged in 2 big grants, one from the damages done in the canyon last January, February, March, and another grant involving the renovation of our tunnel. So we're up to our eyeballs in federal and state grants and the problems and associated with those.
Bob,
Nothing for the water district.
Andy?
Nothing from Mohi.
Well, the Lake Acetus is over 200,000 acre feet of storage right now, and we're probably gonna reach 90% next week, so
What percent?
90.
Yay, way to go.
So yeah, there's lots of water. And it's pretty early in the year too, so.
Whoa. It was like 76% maybe, before this last rain? Something like that?
Yeah,
80.
we hit 80.
You hit 80 already?
Oh, yeah, we're well over 80. I think we were, yeah,
87 I saw today.
87, yeah.
Holy
Yeah,
schmoly.
the last report that Jordan gave, I think, was.
It's almost 210,000 acre feet.
Whoa.
And we can't sell any.
Yeah. Let me divide that by 15.
But
Yeah.
who needs to buy it, right?
No, yes, we need
Every-
people to buy it, yes.
Yeah, everyone's full up and they're.
That's right.
Maybe
Yeah.
you want to expand that water park.
Yeah, the water park's doing fine. But, yeah, it's,
Yeah.
okay.
Alrighty.
General manager comments. Julia?
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for giving me the flexibility to be able to do this remotely. I appreciate it. Couple things that we've been working on since the last meeting. I think I mentioned the last time we were having some issues with the access database and getting that converted over from 32-bit to 64-bit. We were able to get that done successfully through using an outside consultant. And they are now working on revising the quarterly statements. You might remember a couple months ago, I showed you what that new statement was going to look like to hopefully make it easier for people to fill out. So it's a whole thing in Access using the form function and pulling the pre-populated data into that form. So I hope to have that done. It should be done by tomorrow, and then we're gonna give it a test run Monday afternoon, CC, just so you know. So look forward to that. The small GSA coalition that was mentioned at the last meeting, I did make contact with them through Brian Bondi and participated in a conference call with them last week. Interesting group. There's, it was Brian and I from Ventura County, and then there were representatives mostly from up north and Central Valley Coast as well, Sonoma, Water, Santa Cruz County, City of Coachella. And it was interesting. It's really a group to not only commiserate, but to hopefully get some strength in numbers. There were a couple lobbyists that were on the call as well. So they are trying to make some legislative changes, which we can, Peter and Andrew and I can give an update on that during the legislative ad hoc committee item on the agenda. Also, I got an email yesterday that our municipal service review through LAFCO for OBGMA, as well as I think Ojai Water Conservation District is scheduled to go to the County Board of Supervisors on March 20th at 9 a.m. So I have that on my calendar to I'll just go straight to the council chambers that morning. Or I'm sorry, the supervisor hall that morning. I have been going back and forth with LAFCO staff on our MSR, and I provided tons of comments and updates over the last couple months. So I think it's in good shape, and I don't see anything changing, as far as OBGMA is concerned. And then if you're not signed up for the DWR emails, March 10th is Groundwater Awareness Week, and they're going to have some webinars that every day that week. Some I might decide to participate in. Have to see how that week goes. If you're not signed up for those DWR groundwater emails, I highly recommend it. I think, and Form 700s are due April 1st. So I will have CC email those out to everyone. So you've got the month of March to get them filled out. And we just have to keep them on file in our office. We don't have to submit them to anyone else. So look for those to come. That is everything I had on my list.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next, Jordan, the basin status report.
Okay, happy Leap Day, everybody. Let me share the screen here. All right. Looks like this is on the screen with you now. So it's Leap Day, so of course came up with this one to talk about the conditions today. It's leaping recharge. In fact, it might be supercharged as a way to describe what's happening with the basin right now. You mentioned that 87.5% fill of Lake Casitas. If you look at some of those basins and reservoirs around the state, Matilaha, for example, it's supercharged. Its capacity is 100% and it's 100% full, and there's whatever the amount is, it's like half a foot or maybe a foot over the dam spilling over. Kachuma is kind of doing the same thing, and several others. But the idea is that these reservoirs get supercharged, and that's something that we may be seeing here, leaping right over recharge into a supercharged condition. Why does this happen? Well, of course, 2 straight years of excess than average rainfall. The red indicates that it is above an average, and this is a graphic that comes from the county's stormwater alert standards, but 34.72 inches of rain year to date on the ridge and 22.31 on the valley floor. The valley floor would, in an average year, over the longer term average, receives about 21.25 to 21.5 inches of precipitation. So we've already exceeded that long-term average on the valley floor, and of course more up on the ridgetop. Down in the aquifer itself, here's our long-term hydrograph updated to yesterday at least, where we've got significant amounts of water here in the basin. Of course, we're still rising very rapidly. The depth to water of that's 87.96 is actually not updated. I just am now realizing it's about 57 feet to water, and that puts us at about 90, 93, 94% capacity. We might get to that 99.9 percentile again this year at the current rates, and we'll talk a bit more about that here. This is what's happening in the real time. That hydrograph that I showed on the previous slide is since the 1940s. This is since October of 2023. The last time we presented this, we did not yet see that big ski jump going off to the right, and the level shown on the right is of course, feet above the logger plus atmospheric pressure. So it's those are not absolute numbers. That 57 feet is about where the top of this graph would be. But you can see how very little pumping, it's pretty much this whole year since December, and a significant increase in water levels and storage. So what does this mean for the budget, and how is this happening? Yesterday, we conducted the monthly reconnaissance of each creek flow and measured pretty accurately, I believe, some 19.8 CFS at the Gridley Creek, just above the confluence with Senior Canyon, 17.8 CFS at Senior Canyon proper, just above the confluence. And as we go around the basin, Thatcher had about 9.5 CFS coming in. Reeves had 7.8 CFS. The surface flow out of Montgomery was 9.4 CFS, and at San Antonio Creek proper was 40.9 CFS. Now we had a few more. And in fact, one thing that we've noticed here is that, we've been presenting sort of minimum amounts of inflow. And part of that is because each of these points, while close, are not exactly at the basin boundary. So, for example, if we go up to the Ladera Road Bridge along Senior Canyon, we get a whole, from 17.8 CFS to 18.8 CFS just in the quarter mile or so of upstream difference. Of course, there is alluvium between those 2 points, so it stands to reason that 1 CFS, or close to 500 gallons per minute, is finding its way into the basin that we're not accounting for if we're only considering that point where we measured 17.8 CFS. McNell Creek at 0.6, Stewart at 4.3 CFS. If we add it all up, we have a surface water inflow of 60.8 CFS per this metric. And that's, again, thought to be conservative. It's probably much more than that, by 10% or more even. But the surface water outflow is 50.3 CFS. Hence, as we sit here today in this snapshot metric, we see over 10 CFS of recharge to the basin in this snapshot at one time. What that means is that close to 5,000 gallons per minute are entering the basin as recharge. And you can see, based on something like that, that it's full pretty quick. At that rate, and it of course peaks higher and it will go lower. At that rate, there's just not that much more room in the basin, leading to this supercharged condition, wherein recharge is rejected both from the surface flow side of things, but also in the subsurface where the aquifer is full, it's trying to go down, and it might be able to make it down in some parts near the headwaters of these creeks at the fan heads, but it's quickly rejected once it reaches that saturation point. In the hydrographic scheme of things here, it's interesting to look at this curve every month and this series of curves. It's pretty busy, but what jumps out at me today is, really how dry 2021 and 22 were, and how wet, of course, 2023 and 2024 have been so far. But despite relatively less, like half the amount of rainfall in 2024 so far as we had in 2023, the basin conditions are quickly returning to what they were. In fact, wells that we've never seen flow artesian, namely the Hansen well at Grand and near Sarzati Park, is Grand and Park, is flowing artesian. We've never seen that before. Of course, the well hasn't been around forever, but it is something that we've never seen flow artesian. And that's just the result of consecutive, very wet water years. There's just not a lot of place to put any water whatsoever into the basin. And here is said well. As we go through some of these graphics, what I've done is I've put a graphic here in the lower right. I hope you can all see that. But there's a couple things key about this. Outlined in the gray solid is the OBGMA jurisdiction, and the Ojai Basin GSA, or the alluvial portion of the basin, is the purple that's shown there. And of course, where I've taken, or Tim or someone else has taken these photographs, is where that yellow camera is. So you can get an idea about where in the basin each of these photos were taken. This is the Hansen well at Grand and Park that I just mentioned. You can see the soggy ground around it, where water that's flowing artesian and seeping out through the wellhead is finding its way to the ground surface. We've never seen that before, and this well hasn't been used a lot in recent days, and in fact, over the past couple of years since the Hansen family sold this property, the current owners are not using this well as much as they were. Back over to Reeves Road and Reeves Creek, coming into the basin on the far east end. Quite a bit of flow that we don't always see. Enough for us to get a good amount of transect distance across there. You can see our measurement line and flow meter there in the lower third of the image here. Here's where Thatcher Creek enters the basin, just underneath McAndrew Road. Quite a bit of flow, quite a bit of cascade, and of course that continues through the dry crossing at Grand. Here's where we actually take the measurements just upstream of that point, just upstream of that drive bridge over McAndrew. The McNell Creek area, that 1.7 foot per second that you see, of course, it's a much shorter transect, but you get an idea about what the scale is with an image like this over McNell Creek. And of course, the Ladera Road crossing, Port Hermitage, where you can see a beautiful cascade all the way across the road. And on the Hermitage side, where we take the measurements, you notice how clear much of this water is. We don't have a lot of algae yet. We don't have a lot of turbidity. So it's that sweet spot for culling out material and recharge, looking up towards Senior Canyon. And that's the lower point where we have more continuously been taking the transects. As we go up the quarter mile, you can see, and I share this photograph because it's the same type of flow, maybe a little bit more because this was about a week ago. But you see how bouldery that material is around there. That's, of course, capable of taking quite a bit of flow, and that's where that 1 CFS is going. The bridge, if you can see it, is a section of this picture. And then when you get down underneath that bridge and you look upstream, there's, of course, this little bit less flow than yesterday than when I took the photo on the previous slide. But the idea is that with this relatively consistent flow through and underneath this bridge and those abutments, it's a great place to take measurements. And it's, of course, more accurate with respect to the amount of water that's flowing into the basin. I suspect that in coming months and years, as this creek is flowing less, you'll probably see a significant amount of water more flowing here than at that Ladera Road crossing. And then looking downstream from that some point. So this is something that we'll be collecting data at this point, because it's a great data point to collect, and may even be a good candidate for more permanent infrastructure on inflow. San Antonio Creek, you can see the spreading grounds right there and how deep cut the creek channel is, despite this significant flow, which, while flow and volume may find its way to be acceptable for a diversion, the substrate is gone. So the elevation is not there. You can't really get the fall of the creek into the spreading grounds through the passive screen, but that's a battle for another day. As we go further in toward the center of the basin, looking upstream from Grand Avenue Bridge and San Antonio Creek, and downstream from that same point with the Casitas Ojai system on the left, it's a San Antonio Wellfield Ojai Mutuals to the right or west of the creek. As we get further down to the west, this is where Stewart Canyon comes into the basin, where we measure about that 1.9 feet per second, and about twice that for cubic feet per second coming in. What that's doing, of course, you saw the artesian flow in the Hansen well. Here in our depth discrete monitoring well on South Fulton Street, we've had artesian conditions in at least one of these wells almost the whole time. And you can see over to the left is how we have to pump out with that little fountain pump to evacuate the vault because it gets so saturated with that water and fills up. So that open casing, it's a 2-inch diameter PVC casing that goes down. It's I think it's 140 to 160 feet or so for that one. We call that the intermediate shallow system, and it's below the perched aquifer, but it definitely has exhibited artesian flow currently, obviously, but it started about over a year ago, and it really has gone around the horn. The entire summer, this particular well was flowing completely artesian, very low rates, but nevertheless flowing. Here's where under the Montgomery Creek area, downstream from Stewart, is draining the portion of the city on the west side. This is going a bridge is a tunnel is underneath Creek Road, and where we measure more consistently the San Antonio Creek proper flow at the point of exiting the basin. You'll notice that 4.4 feet per second velocity in our gauge here, if you can see that. And this is where we're getting that 50 CFS leaving the basin. So it's quite a bit of water that's taken off. By the time you get down to Old Creek Road, where you can see the county gauge there on the left with the radar gauge, the main channel flow right underneath it, how turbid that water is by comparison to what's flowing in the Ojai Basin. And of course, you have a secondary channel off to the west or to the right in this image as you're looking south, where there's additional flow that's not being recorded by this particular county gauge along San Antonio Creek before the confluence with the Ventura River. You'll notice that the yellow camera is off the map here to the south and west of the basin. That's not an exact location, but gives you an idea that it's kind of pretty far away from the Ojai Basin proper. All right, what do we got going forward? I took a look at what the NOAA National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration has predicted, and we've all heard about El Nino this year and its persistence and in relation to some of the very wet conditions we've had, but everything seems to be declining in strength with respect to El Nino, and may become ENSO or El Nino surface oscillation neutral by April, May, or June. Just things declining, getting drier, heading toward the La Nina around June to August of 2024. What that means is that things should get drier and colder next fall and winter. Of course, time will tell. So what is their prediction for precipitation in March, April, May of 2024? Much like it was all of this year, equal chances of average. So 50% chance of having 50% of your precipitation. It's all white for pretty much the entire state of California. Okay, that's it. And any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you, Jordan.
All right, thank you.
Okay, the next item is public comments on items that are not on today's agenda. Does anyone have any public comments? Anyone online? Okay. Consent agenda. We have the financial report for January and the minutes of the January 25th board meeting. Any questions or comments on those items? If not, can I have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Call the roll.
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Thielke?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, the next item is the Community Facilities Director. I think it's been 3 years since you were appointed. That's the statute. Is the term.
Whenever you vacated that position
Yeah,
is when I came on.
I think it was 3 years ago in
Okay.
December, and I think you were installed in January. John Whaley is the alternate, and I've talked to him, and he is willing to continue to serve in that position. And I talked to Bob, and he said he was willing to continue to serve. So, pleasure of the board if those two are acceptable to you.
Do we need a motion for that? Yeah. I move that we appoint Bob Daddy for another term on the board.
I have a second.
No. I'm gonna abstain on that vote.
Well, I can second it.
You second.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Abstain.
Director Thielke?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. And then we need a motion to appoint the alternate, John Whaley.
I make a motion to appoint John as alternate.
Second?
Call the roll?
You guys are fast. Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Thielke?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, the next item is the well verification. Julia?
Yes, you may recall this well came up at our last meeting, and there were some items that needed to be taken care of in the evaluation that was done by the hydrogeologists. So those were taken care of. And we got a revised memorandum from DBSNA, which is attached to your packet. So you can see the recommendation there that follows the language of the executive order regarding the Sustainable Groundwater Management Program and the likelihood of achieving sustainability in the basin. So there is an attached resolution authorizing a well verification for the proposed new well on that assessor parcel number at 1388 Orange Road.
Any questions or comments by the board? Did you have a comment? That's for me. Yeah. I don't. Okay. All right, can I have a motion to approve resolution number 2024-1?
If you,
I'm sorry, before I do that, I should mention that Peter provided some comments on the resolution, and you should have a separate handout with some revised language on it. That's the one that should be approved, not the one that was in the board packet.
that one under your,
Okay. Peter, are there any significant differences?
I wouldn't say necessarily significant, that we changed some of the recitals and also made it clear, you'll see in section 1 where we're tracking the language of the executive order. We included that as well, just to make this bulletproof.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Can I have a motion to approve the resolution?
I so move.
Second.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Thielke?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. Okay, the next item is the Ojai Valley Groundwater Basin Annual Report. Julia?
Yeah, this is our annual report that's due to DWR to comply with SIGMA. You have a draft copy in your board packet, and Trevor and Devin from DUDEC are here to give you a presentation with the highlights. So I will turn it over to Trevor.
Unfortunately, we've lost our video.
Oh,
Have you?
Hold on a second.
Okay, we'll wait.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with the feed. It's,
no?
no.
We're back.
Okay,
Okay, I didn't know who was gonna,
Devin's
It's
going to
over.
take it from here.
Okay, Devin.
And give an overview of the annual report.
great.
all right, we have the first page of your presentation. It's on video now.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I'm Devin Pritchard Peterson with DUDEC, hydrogeologist, and going to present on the annual report for water year 2023. So as Julia mentioned, the annual report is a requirement of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. And it is required to be prepared and submitted on an annual basis by April 1st of the year following that water year. And the organization of the annual report is generally the following, as shown on the screen. These sections, 7 sections. And the purpose of the annual report is really to provide an update on basin conditions and an opportunity for the Groundwater Sustainability Agency to provide an update to DWR on GSP implementation progress and basin conditions. So for water year 2023, started October 1st, 2022 and ended September 30th, 2023. And for purposes of the annual report and consistency from year to year, in the annual report, when we talk about the spring high, that's going to be represented by March measurements, and the fall low being represented by October measurements. And should be noted that from year to year, this can vary, the fall low and the spring high. But for consistency, we are sticking with these months for the measurements. So this graph shows precipitation in inches on the left y-axis and cumulative departure from the mean precipitation on the right y-axis. And as you can see on the graph, and water year 2023 was a wet water year with 47.41 inches of precipitation measured at the Ojai station. That's about double the average, or 200% of average. And this precipitation plays an important role in basin conditions and observed water levels and groundwater in storage. So there's a number of wells measured in the basin for groundwater levels, a handful of which have minimum thresholds that have been established, and those are elevations at these wells that if the groundwater levels drop below the minimum thresholds, then the OBGMA may take some action to slow the or avoid potential undesirable results. And so in water year 2023, we saw that that groundwater levels at all of these wells stayed above the minimum threshold, from about 10 feet to over 100 feet above these minimum thresholds. Moving into water use, groundwater extraction in water year 2023 totaled 3,351 acre feet. Imported surface water, that's Lake Casitas water, imported by Casitas Municipal Water District, totaled about 1,100 acre feet, bringing the total water use in water year 2023 to about 4,500 acre feet. There is potential additional extraction reporting. So the groundwater extraction is provisional at this time. But overall, it looks like water year 2023 water use was down significantly as compared to the prior water years. And the pie graph on the lower left just shows the breakdown of groundwater use by sector, with about 50% of groundwater extraction being used for agriculture, and another large portion, about 40%, for the Ojai water system, and the remaining for various domestic municipal industrial uses. So when we look at this cumulative and annual change in storage, the measurements taken at the Elrod well, or the well 5L8S, which is next to the Elrod well and has a similar trend. If we look at that correlation between groundwater levels and storage, We see that there is an annual increase of about 7,427 acre feet in the basin in water year 2023. And looking at that cumulatively from 2014, see an increase of about 12,000 acre feet. So overall, water year 2023 was very wet, and groundwater levels and storage increased significantly in the basin. So lastly, the annual report includes a section on the GSP implementation progress. So on October 26, 2023, DWR approved the Ojai Groundwater Sustainability Plan. And with the approval included some recommended corrective actions that should be addressed before or by the first periodic evaluation, which is due January 31st, 2027. And in water year 2023, some key projects and management actions that were implemented by the OBGMA included the development of a framework for reviewing and evaluating well permits in accordance with the governor's executive order. The OBGMA also passed ordinance number 12 to protect the southwest upper most saturated zone from groundwater extraction and depletion. And the OBGMA started and is currently implementing multiple projects and management actions, including development of a new data management system, preparation of a sampling and analysis plan, review and improvement of the existing groundwater extraction metering program, continued monthly monitoring of surface and groundwater conditions, and identification of future GSP funding opportunities. And all of these projects and management actions implemented in water year 2023 will help to address those corrective actions that the DWR is asking for by January 31st, 2027. So that's a high-level summary of the annual report, and a draft of the annual reports included in the agenda. But if there's any questions, happy to take those at this time.
Any questions? Does this annual report satisfy what we traditionally reported on for the OBGMA?
Yes, it does. It includes all the information that was originally included in the groundwater management plans.
Okay, good.
Chair, I do have a question. I have a question.
Sure.
I'm looking at the 3,300 acre feet, and I'm looking at last month's accounting where we sold 2,900 acre feet. Where did the 400 acre feet go? Where's that? How's that unaccounted for from what we sold to what was drawn out? And I'm not talking about what leaked through aquifer, but what was drawn out based on that. That's over 10% deviation.
Where
Julia,
are
did you
you
have a
getting
comment?
the 2,900 from?
We have a slide, I think it's 6 or 7 in there. It showed what Ojai used, the municipal used, and it showed that 3,300 odd acre feet was drafted out of the basin, 3,351 acre feet of groundwater extraction. Based on our prior month's accounting, when we took a look at what we collected and we showed a year, maybe it's a fiscal year where we're doing one half of one year and
Are
one
you-
half of another.
Talking about this one?
Lower left-hand corner, it should say 2,900 acre feet.
Well, the problem with this one is it's only has the first quarter of of our fiscal year.
We had the last one that showed the
Last one
entire
was-
year.
Right.
It showed how much we collected, and it showed 2,900. I was just wondering.
I believe it was from past due
Yes.
statements we got that added. Are you saying it's less or more?
What I'm saying is we charged for 2,900 acre feet collected,
Uh-huh.
and this shows that 3,351 was drawn out. And that's over a 10% deviation. I'm just wondering where that 10% of the water went.
Well, I don't know on the, you're talking about the money, the 29, explain that to me again, please.
Last meeting, we got an accounting, and the accounting showed what we charged and what we collected for the entire year. It showed that we charged for 2,900 acre feet of extraction. This shows that we got 3,351 acre feet of extraction. I'm just wondering where the difference is, where that 400 plus acre feet, that's over 10%.
Why it changed?
Well, why there's a difference between the two?
Are we using the same period?
Yeah, it could be half a year, half a year. One could be.
Oh, I didn't
don't-
even
I
notice
don't-
it was on there. But I think what happened partially was because we got old reports in. We got past due reports in
Yeah.
that
That's what it
added
is.
more acre feet to the extractions.
Okay.
And because that had been behind a lot, and she does adjust this. Maybe it would be better to have both years in here
Again,
to
I'm just
see.
comparing. the
And then
difference.
I talked to Michelle, the bookkeeper, who upgrades this, updates it when we get in more money from past due quarters. So it does change, because we're still digging around for some 2020 extraction statements from people.
The year 2020?
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big part of what CC does is go back and find the people who haven't been reporting and get them caught up.
And arrest them.
She puts them in groundwater jail.
This needs to stop.
Yes, we have a few, and we have a few big farms, ranches, that are haven't reported since 2020. Took out their orchards and claim they cannot afford to pay the fees.
I'm kind of stunned because I went to one of the worst meetings I ever went to in my life at the OBGMA, where we went ahead and we raised water rates. And I'm just wondering, had we been currents this last 3 years, what we really would have needed to raise had we collected those past due amounts.
Well,
So-
I'm not finished trying to collect.
Oh, it's not about you. I'm just.
No, but I
it's-
mean-
It's about me. You know, it's where we're trying to correct something with an unknown.
Right.
And that's difficult for me.
For me too, yes, it is. And then, and also, there were a few properties, big properties that were bought by LLCs that don't have people on the properties to do the measure, to record, the usage. And then they'll take maybe like a whole year and say, okay, how can we figure out what quarter, how much we collected, how much water we used for each quarter? And you have to take into account the climate, what part of the year, to figure out, to at least try to get a good reading of what they used. Did that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is no way to get a good reading of what they use.
No, it isn't, but, I mean, from some experience I've had, I can work through it. It's not exact on some of those.
Well, I think for the purpose of this report, the 3,351 acre feet is the sum total of metered reported extractions, correct?
Not just metered,
And the unmetered as well.
unmetered as well.
So there's an estimate for the unmetered as well.
What
Yep.
unmetered
That's
wells
reported.
Yeah, this goes.
that are basically domestic,
Oh, okay.
and they report 2 acre feet a year. So it's included
This
in
is
there.
reported numbers. The 3,351 is what's reported, not necessarily,
Extracted. Is that what you're saying?
well, yeah, not necessarily extracted, but this 3,351 is acre feet that were, who paid the fees.
Right, exactly.
So that's the paid. Okay, any other questions?
It looks like there's a hand up from Kevin Delano.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Kevin Delano. I'm a geologist at the State Water Board. I probably should have actually asked this question during the public comment, so if I'm off on the agenda, then I can come back to it later or something. But seeing the GSP implementation for 2023 action items and got me, I wanted to ask a question or make an offer for some of the corrective actions that the DWR approval letter noted for OBGMA. Is this a time where I can talk about that, or should I come back to it later?
I think it's appropriate.
Excuse me, who do we have speaking?
Kevin Delano.
My name is Kevin Delano. I'm a geologist in the Division of Water Rights at the State Water Resources Control Board.
Oh,
I couldn't understand. It was a little bit garbled. So could you repeat it, please?
Yeah, my name is Kevin Delano. I'm a licensed geologist at the Division of Water Rights at the State Water Resources Control Board.
Yes.
And so basically, I just wanted to comment on a couple of the corrective actions that the approval letter, DWR's approval letter commented on. Basically, I think corrective actions 2 and 4 and 5 all had kind of line items where the OBGMA was directed to either coordinate or work to resolve disagreements with state and federal agencies. And so just making myself available. I work at the State Water Board, and we are kind of we're expecting to hear from you guys, or maybe from Julia, on these corrective actions in the coming years. So I just wanted to make myself available, aware that we're here and we're available to work with you on those corrective actions. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me,
And your phone
where
number?
do I have the reference to look at corrective action on 2, 4, and 5?
So on page 36 of 38 on the approval letter, corrective action 2B says coordinate with beneficial users of interconnected surface water and other state and federal agencies that are or may act under other laws and authorities to address biological or ecological concerns regarding low and stream flows in portions of the Ventura River and its tributaries, and to improve understanding of interconnected surface water and groundwater conditions across the basin. And then corrective action 4
Packet.
is corrective action 4, coordinate with the appropriate groundwater users, including drinking water, environmental, and irrigation users as identified in the plan, and water quality regulatory agencies, that would mean the Los Angeles Regional Water Board, and programs in the basin to understand and develop a process for monitoring and determining if groundwater management and extraction could cause migration of constituents of concern or degraded water quality in the basin. And then corrective action 5 says, this is 5B on page 38 of 38, prioritize collaborating and coordinating with local, state, and federal regulatory agencies, as well as interested parties, to better understand the full suite of beneficial uses and users that may be impacted by pumping induced surface water depletion within the GSA's jurisdictional area. And corrective action 5D is continue to work to resolve disagreements with state and federal agencies regarding interconnected surface waters.
So
Does that answer your question?
we don't have that in front of us. So is this the?
No, but I was going to tell Bob, on our website, under the sustainability tab, there's a section called OBGMA compliance. And the final GSP is on there, as well as the determination letter that Kevin is speaking from. And all of that is outlined in that letter. And I'm happy to send it to you if you want as well, Bob.
Yeah,
Or anybody
I'd
else.
like to look at it because, again, it's pretty garbled. This is not the best acoustics here, and it was a little
Okay.
difficult to really grasp what we're trying to look at. And if there's any special notes that need to be put, if we're supposed to be looking at 2, 4, and 5, if we have a time frame, a determination to get back, what what scope of answers we're looking at, something that kind of allows us to figure out what we do to answer, remediate, modify, comply, whatever the action is going to be. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I was speaking fast. So yeah, these are the kind of summary of the corrective actions for the OBGMA in the approval letter. And I'm just stating that there's several corrective actions that DWR instructs the OBGMA to work with state agencies, including the State Water Board. And so I recommend, if you haven't seen them, taking a look at them. They're on the last pages of the approval letter where they're summarized. Like Julia said, and State Water Board staff, we are, we're here and we're kind of waiting to hear from your team, or whenever you want to work with us on those corrective actions, we're here. But there's it's multi-year, as was said by, I think, Devin, these actions need to be addressed by the next 5-year update. So.
Okay, so what I understand, this is the letter that came with the approval of our GSP, and it had some corrective actions.
Yeah.
Okay. We've seen it, but it's been a while, so I appreciate your offering to help, and
Do we need to-
staff will get in touch with you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Sorry for interrupting.
Julia.
Okay, Julia, the action item is to approve the resolution?
It's just to receive and file the annual report.
Just to accept and file? Okay.
Yes.
Have a motion?
Motion to accept and file.
Second.
Call the roll?
Director Daddy?
Yes.
Director Whitman?
Yes.
Director Zilke?
Yes.
Chair Hages?
Yes. All right, next item is discussion items, well application cost recovery and agreement. This was something we brought up at the last meeting, and doing these well verifications, in some cases, it's rather costly to us because we have to engage consultants to review it, and we have legal expenses in some cases, so we're trying to come up with a way that we can recuperate those costs. Not necessarily in all cases. Some of them are simple, but some of them are very complicated. And Julia, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so Peter provided some examples of what other agencies have done, and it's really a process. It's really a formal process. There's some example documents that were attached that look at the process, the criteria, an agreement that an applicant needs to sign. There could be some legal issues if, for example, a well was denied, so there's an indemnification agreement as well. Resolutions that are adopted, fees, deposits, things like that. I think it's something that we should formalize, basically, the process. It helps OBGMA out. It also helps applicants out so that they know what's expected of them when they apply for a well verification. And again, if, Jordan spent a lot of time reviewing this last one on Orange Road. Cece and I did as well, Peter's time. There should be a way to recover those costs because they shouldn't be spread over our quote unquote customer base. It's really for the benefit of one applicant. And I feel like they should bear that cost themselves. So if you'd like, we can go into this a little bit deeper and I can work with Peter to develop a process and the right types of forms and agreements that we think are appropriate for OBGMA, and bring those back maybe in a month or two for the board to consider implementing.
Yeah, yeah, we're seeing these applications come in and, we don't have process, policy, procedure in place to offset the costs. So right now it's on the agency's back, and I think, Julie's pointed out that, that's not really appropriate. We've got examples here of another agency, Santa Barbara County, San Ynez Valley Groundwater Basin, where, you know, they've developed documents that are part of a standardized application process that any proposed new well owner has to fill out and sign. And you know, if you look at these, they're pretty good templates that we could use to, I think, pretty easily develop similar documents on behalf of OBGMA. You know, you see that there's a lot of protective provisions built in here. I mean, basically, you know, the agency's going to exercise its discretion on these well applications, and if for some reason, you know, the answer is no, you know, this isn't consistent with our groundwater sustainability plan, we can't issue a well verification for any particular well. You know, the agency's not going to get sued. And if they do get sued, they're indemnified. The well applicant has agreed to indemnify. So not only is it a deposit and reimbursement mechanism, but it's also indemnification and protective provisions to the agency. So that makes sense. And then the other piece of this is actually adopting a policy that puts these well applicants on notice of the process the agency is going to go through in evaluating, you know, whether this is compliant with the groundwater sustainability plan or not. You know, currently it's an ad hoc process that the agency goes through, and depending on what the well application provides, you know, we'll have Jordan take a look at it, maybe kick it to DUDEC, but it would probably be better for the agency to adopt a policy that is clear, tells everybody what to expect through this process, what's the criteria the agency would apply to these, to make these determinations, and then run it through that gauntlet and then come out with an answer on the other end. Just some examples here of, you know, what we could think about adopting, and again, you know, if the board were to provide direction to go ahead and draft up some of these documents, I think it's pretty easy to use these as templates and work from them to get that done.
Any questions?
Yes. This well application with the forward letter and the last couple things, 40 pages, two-sided. What kind of cost did this applicant incur, and what kind of cost did we incur processing this thing? Before we, you know, decide what we're gonna do, we better figure out where we are. And this is 100 acre feet on this application for 52 acres.
Yeah.
And so I can see that we're gonna have just shotgun. We're gonna have 2 acres and 2 acre feet, and we're gonna be all over the place. And I know we've got to check with all the other wells, and I know we've got to check all the boxes. I'm taking a look at this thing here, and I'm thinking this is not inexpensive.
No.
And then, again, what our costs are. So I'd really kind of like to know where we are in this, and talking to people about, you know, what the process is one thing. I think we need to start talking about what the cost is going to be. So when somebody comes in and decides that they're going to do a well report, and we go, well, it's going to cost you $5,000 to fill out the application and check with all these wells and get all these locations. I think that should be part of this too. They should have the full benefit of understanding what this is going to be. I don't have the full benefit of understanding any of it, so I don't have any idea what these costs are.
Well, I mean, it's thousands of dollars, I'll tell you that much, without even looking at any detail. I mean, the amount of effort that went into it. But it was also the first time we did one like this, so it made it a little more difficult. But I think the applicants, it's the applicant's obligation to look at the rules and regulations and hire their own expert to give them an idea what it's gonna cost to get an approval. It's not up to us to give them an estimate.
Oh, no, I understand it, but we're gonna have to put some work into it too. Once they submit it,
Yes.
we've gotta do work, we've got costs.
Well, yeah, that's the purpose of this, so we
Right.
can get those costs. I mean, ideally, we would require a deposit.
That's how I would envision it working, is that I would do an estimate of how many hours of my time, how many hours Jordan's, if we need to get Dudek involved to put this in the model that they maintain for us, Peter's time. I would do an estimate. I think one of the examples that Peter provided was kind of a flat rate of $200 an hour. And then we'd have to estimate how many hours we think it's going to take from the individuals and get a deposit. If it's going to be, 20 hours total that we estimate, they're going to have to provide a $4,000 deposit. And then we charge, our time against it, keep track. If there's some left over, they get it back. If there's more, then if it's more complicated, then we have to ask for more. And again, they also have to hire a hydrogeologist to do the evaluation for them if it meets that threshold. So it could be tens of thousands of dollars just to go through our process.
Wow.
But at the same time, there's applicants that do the 2 acre feet.
Right.
I mean, Julia can approve those, and Jordan can approve those. It's not really cost us
Right.
that much, so.
Right, the agency last year went through the process of adopting an approach that would allow these small, we'll call them de minimis, well applications to be administratively approved. Don't even need to actually come to the board. So that's in place. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about these larger well applications that, once you have these consecutive new approvals, at some point, it's gonna tip the balance on the sustainability plan, and it's no longer gonna be sustainable. So, and that's not something that any of us here can do. That's something that our experts need to determine for us, and that costs money, and it should be paid for by the applicant. So that's what we're talking about doing here.
Does it depend also on where it is in the basin?
I was just gonna mention that because we did get an application in on Thatcher Road for a bedrock well. And that's not in the alluvium, so it's not in the DWR defined basin. So that was one, is 50 acre feet a year. But that was one that didn't need to come to the board. And I just, had some emails back and forth with Jordan that I was able to just, give them the approval letter. Peter did spend some time also on revising the letter because the county wanted some better language in it to cover themselves. So it does depend on where it is. Again, it could be within OBGMA, but outside the GSA. So there's that as well. I wish I could say there was a template, but there doesn't seem to be. Everyone's unique.
Yeah.
I'm really in favor of pursuing this. And, since, well, it looks like EMA has only been doing it for about a year, but I think we should also get information about how these jurisdictions that are doing it, how the ratepayers are responding. So we can anticipate problems maybe that they're experiencing and try to, figure out our system to avoid those.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we have some pretty good examples, so. You have a comment?
No.
Well, I would suggest that we direct staff and our legal counsel to try to come up with a draft that matches our needs based on the examples that they've come up with, and bring it back to us.
Yeah, I'd second that.
Was that a motion? Oh.
Just discussion, direction.
Then don't second it.
All right, well, we'll get working on that.
Okay, anything else on that item? Okay, the next item is legislative ad hoc committee update. Who wants to do that?
I could do it.
Oh,
We've made contact with one of Assemblyman Bennett's local people, I think the main person. Her name is Michelle Sevilla. And Andy, and Julia and I, we've agreed to a meeting on the 19th of March. It'll be a Zoom call. And we've given them the basics of what the meeting's going to be about, checking with any kind of progress, legislative progress on funding for implementation grants to, the next stage of the GSP. So the meeting is on, and perhaps we could have some kind of mechanism in place to have board members send one of us at least some questions that somebody might have as far as what we're going to ask at this meeting on the 19th of March. But
Yeah, I'd like to put like a document together with some talking points. So
yeah,
that we could give to their staff ahead of time, like a week ahead of time would be great. If I could put a deadline of March 12th to get any input on
Okay.
some talking points,
mm-hmm.
that would be great.
Great.
Yeah, I want to thank Peter. He got this put together really quickly.
Yeah.
We just had our first meeting a few days ago, and he's got, a meeting lined up, so I was very pleased about that. And, and in addition to the issue of grants, I do, plan to raise, this thing that we've talked about in terms of, would there be any interest or receptiveness to carve out small basins and history of sustainability to have a revised program, so we're not doing these massive reports every 5 years until there's some demonstration that we're at risk.
Yeah.
well, that's great.
Sounds like a talking point.
It's good that they're receptive to listening at least, so. Anything else on that?
I did want to mention that the Small GSA Coalition, the call I participated in last week, they do have a couple lobbyists in that group as well. One who works for the city of Coachella, and another one with the public policy group. They mentioned an assembly bill that Assemblymember Bennett is kind of a placeholder right now. I don't know what the details are, but it is groundwater related. So when I get more information on that, I will share it. But it seemed like it was just a placeholder right now because there was a deadline to get something in. They did also say that they were working on their own white paper for well permitting. So I think it's actually an interesting group because a lot of the small GSAs seem to be having the same issues. One of them said that they don't want to be involved in the well permitting. They don't want to have to issue well verification letters or anything. They're like, nope, we don't want to do that. That's the county. And I'm like, well, we already do that at the county kind of, we have to. So I think moving forward, it will be a good group for me to stay plugged into and keep you posted on how that as a coalition can work together to hopefully make some changes that are Sigma related.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
We could go pick it at the arcade. They do.
Okay, the next item is Meter Compliance Committee update. Jim and I haven't had a chance to meet, but we have given staff some instructions to put together as much data as we can, so when we do meet, we have something hard to talk about instead of imagining what the actual condition is. So I'm hopeful that,
Yeah. And now that we have the access database kind of up and running, that's next on our list to do. Is pull that information together for you.
you think we may have anything before the next board meeting?
Oh, yeah, I think we can definitely.
Okay,
Definitely.
well, that's good. If we can get that information, then Jim and I can get together, at least get a start, and give you a report on, you know, the magnitude of the problem, at least.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments on that?
I have a question, or maybe a comment. I would like to share some of the information I get back from some of the well owners that don't have meters on what they call standby wells, not destroyed, and that can't have a meter, or it's, the well is just, they can't use it.
Well, that's what, we get the information, we can kind of separate everything into various categories and set some priorities on what we really have to go after, so.
That sounds great. I would like to just have input if I could. Would you? Thank you.
Yeah, now that you're saying that, Cece, I'm thinking that when we have that committee meeting, it'll be important for you to attend because you're the one who talks to these people.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? We are adjourned at 4:15. Meetings are getting longer than can see us.
Like the sunlight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julia.
Bye.
All right, thank you all.
Bye.
You look good on camera, Julia. She left. I would not want to be that big
Where
on.
is Julia? Is she in Colorado still?
She was in Texas, and then she was going to, no, she was in Colorado and then going to Texas, and then going to Las Vegas.